In this block of instruction, we're looking at painting weights in Maya on a character that we've rigged with the setup machine for games from Untitled Studios. As we're looking at this, we're looking for any problem areas that we might have on a rig. And this is the first rig that we did, and this is a re-rig of that same rig. And one of the things that we found is that the rotation of the shoulder seemed unnatural. So what we're getting on this shoulder rotation is this bending on the outside. It's not bending to the inside, and this deformation is just really a problem. So this is one of the first things that we do when we're painting weights, is we're looking for anything that might be a problem that we would want to go in and fix. And we definitely identified an issue with this rig. Well, one of the great things about Untitled Studios, the setup machine for games, is that you can get this far into setting up and painting your weights, and when you find something that you really don't like, you can revert to a point where the widgets can still be moved. So under the setup machine for games, you can restore from the last point. So, or you can restore from a specific point in time. So what we ended up doing was, we had painted all the weights, we broke the skin after we had exported the skin map, the weight map for this character, so we didn't end up having to repaint all of the skin mapping on the second character. And then what we did is we adjusted our widgets and we rebound our widgets. And the way that we figured out that we really had a problem, this is the new, we'll just rotate that in a single axis. This is the new shoulder. So you can really see a difference. And just in identifying what might be a problem later on, that's one of the first things that we do with our skin weighting, is just go through and kind of move the rig around and identify where the problem is. And the way that we did that is, let's go to my documents, and we took a picture of the rig that they give for free under my pictures. Let's go in and we'll look at this right here. Let's look at that. So this showed us right here under the setup machines for game character that their shoulder was placed in farther than ours is on our model, on our original model. So we simply looked at that, and if we take this, I mean, we can see the bones because we've got x-ray bones on, but if we look at where our shoulder is in its placement, let's just zero it, and we'll zero that clavicle control. We saw that we definitely had an issue with the placement of our joint. Here we can see the joint space is much shorter between the clavicle, which actually looks like it needed to come in some, and the placement of the shoulder rotation. So we can cover that. We will cover that in another lesson about the exporting of the skin weight map and then the reusing of that map so that we could reuse what we had already done with the skinning of the fingers and the skinning of the vest and the feet. And we had pretty much done the majority of the weight painting before we really figured out that we had a problem. So here's the fix. What we really want to cover now is, let's go in and let's open a scene, and we'll open our tweak scene. Another thing is, you never really want to write over your master file. We're calling our master file at this point US Soldier Rig, and you never really want to paint or work on your master file, you want to use a tweak file, tweak A, tweak B, because this file is already being used in another scene and it's referenced. So this is our main reference file, but we're going to go back to our tweak file where we're currently tweaking the weights to bring them closer to the final, and that again will save that tweak on top of the soldier rig and rewrite that file with all the tweaks that we make, and then all of that will update later on in the pipeline. So let's open the tweak file, and hopefully now Camtasia running in the background, Maya will run smoother than it currently is. This error is because it's looking for this channel box right here from MG Tools. I like to use their channel box in MG Tools. In MG Tools, that's a whole different subject altogether, using MG Tools, because that is something that I recommend everybody grab the free version of MG Tools and even look into purchasing the pro version, because the things that it allows you to do are just, you really want that. So let's display the shelf also, and we're using the MG Tools shelf. So here's the way that we go about painting weights. Once we pretty much have a weighting that we like, then we just simply select our objects and we'll go in and we'll look for anything that might be a problem within the model. We're looking for any deformations, and one of the things that I've definitely identified this morning is that I don't really like the way that the vest is pulling at the top and not taking the bottom with it. So because that's a problem area, I'm just going to set up a simple set of keys, going to my first key in the timeline, and I'm going to work only with the rotations. So I'm going to go into the rotations, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say key selected. Then I'm going to move forward in the timeline to just say frame 6, and I'm going to rotate that object. Now I'm going to rotate it in the x-axis. So I'm going to rotate it there. Then I'm going to turn auto key on just because it makes things faster. And I'm going to select all, and I'm going to key selection. Now the shortcut for keying your selections is Shift E will set rotational keys, but we're going to go the long route and actually select them in the window. Then let's go back to our X rotation and let's shift it to the back, and we're simply trying to solve the problem that we're having here with the pulling on the vest. We'll look at the back and we'll scroll through our keys and see what that's doing. Okay, back doesn't look too bad. Let's rotate X just a little bit more. Yep, back doesn't look bad at all. So rotate to back there. So now what we want to do is, now that we've got movement on the rig, on the bones, and we see where we have our stretching, we're simply going to right click on the mesh and we're going to say paint skin weights tool, which is going to bring up our paint skin weights. Now we're using a solid square, no, we're using a solid brush. That's what's highlighted. We're using our solid brush, not our fade brush, but our solid brush. We're down here in add. We're not using smooth, which is really the final phase, but we're at add and we're at 0.05. And so the next thing that we're going to do is we're just going to go in on our model and we're going to look at which bone is controlling this bending. And as we move the rig, we can see that that's happening primarily at this set right here. So we're going to go and we're going to right click and we're going to say select influence. So now that's going to show us our weights that we currently have on that bone. So because it's not pulling these areas enough, I want to add some weight to that. So all I'm going to do now, I can enlarge or make smaller my brush by simply holding down the B key, left mouse clicking, and dragging in the scene. So I want this area to move a little bit more with the vest so that I'm not getting this stretching. So I'm going to just add some weight to that. I'm going to click and then go through here and add some weight to that. Now, being mindful that this is a double-sided mesh, we're also going to want to go on the inside. Now, we don't want to add too much because that could create a problem later on. It's just that what we currently have looks a bit funky. So we'll just continue to, now we'll go to the inside of the mesh, enlarging. We'll look at the inside at what's going on. Try to find our way around in there. Let's go inside. Now we're just on the back. We're inside now. So these areas we're going to allow to lift a little bit more than they're currently lifting. We don't want to go all the way through. Okay. That's not looking too bad. Maybe lift those points up a little bit more. Lift those up. Okay, let's see what we're getting on the front. I would like to see a little bit less of the crushing, I think, of those front pouches, or a little bit more interaction on this frontal part. Now we're only working on one side of the mesh because we're going to use the mirror skin weights tool to actually mirror these weights over to the other side. So we're only concentrating on painting the weights. We're going to mirror from negative X to positive X, or positive X to negative X. So let's see what we've got now. Okay. I don't really like that. So I'm going to assign, taking this bone, right clicking, checking its influence. I'm going to give it a little bit more right there and a little bit more right there. And let's go back to this bone and we're going to select its influence, and let's see what we've got. Scrolling our line. Okay, I'm getting some crushing. I don't really like the way that that's crushing that. So I'm going to add some influence there just to get that to stay more rigid. These vests they don't bend quite that much. It's important to use reference. If you have a chance to actually use the gear, which luckily with this, that can be an option to actually wear this gear and see how it moves. Excuse me. So let's see what kind of a result this gives us. Not quite as much. Let's take that brush size down and just kind of concentrate on that. And let's see what we're getting. Not quite as much crushing. We'll do that. Almost looks like the normals were flipping right there. Okay, I don't know that all that far away from the bone. The bone's up here, yet it's controlling these vertices down here, and I don't really believe that that would work out that way in the real world. So we're trying to make this echo what we would see in the real world. Let's make that just a little bit more rigid and see what we get. Okay, not quite as much stretching. This is doing a weird collapsing thing here, so we'll put that down. Okay. Okay, well, that's not looking too bad. I'm getting here some very strange things happening, so we'll just add some weight to that. Let's look a little to the inside here. Okay, and let's see what that does for us. Let's do that. Okay, and let's do this. Let's see what happens there. Still getting a lot of crushing going on right in here. It's becoming a real problem. So we'll just zoom in. Always asking ourselves questions like, how does that look? Does that, what's going on there? A constant checking and rechecking to try to create a better outcome. Okay, and let's see what we've got. I don't really like that frontal crushing that's happening there. So let's, and I definitely don't like that there. So let's look at that. Okay. And let's just bring that point down. Let's look at the back. Let's see what's going on there. All right. Let's just look at our topology here and see how these lines are moving, if they're looking extremely stretched. What's going on? Now we're just working with the influence of that bone right there. It's good to every now and then check and see what exactly it is that you're working with, and to go inside the model. We're not going to do that so much here when we're recording because it just, Maya's not really responding as smoothly as we would like. So okay, there we are. Let's go to this midline right here and kind of give that. Now we'll simply hit the W key, which brings us to the selection. Then we'll select out in space, and let's see what our vest is doing now. So we're getting some let's turn off the visibility of the vest, and what we're seeing right here is actually underneath. That's the that's the model, not the vest. That's the underskin. The vest has its own skin on it. That's not looking too bad. I've got some serious stretching of that medic pouch right there, which I believe is what that's supposed to be. So that's our workflow for skin painting. So just to solve this section right here, we'll go back into the, on top of the mesh, we'll click on select paint weights tool, and we'll simply bring, don't like that, we definitely don't want that. So what we'll do is we'll select this bone select its influence, and we'll give this just a little bit more weight to try to prevent that mesh from coming through here. And if we have to, I mean, what we can do, that seems to have solved our problem, is actually adjust the mesh underneath, because maybe it's not perfect either. So it's laborious, it can be, but it is something that has to be done. And if you develop a workflow, it's something that doesn't have to be a real pain in the neck. So we'll go back to selection, select down in space, see what we've got now. It's not too bad, still some stretching. Now chances are, if we've collapsed that, we're also going to, auto key is on, let's go there. I have no key set on that. So we're also going to be bending the mid body also. In the event that that was bent, we would also be bending the central control. So there we go. That's basically what we do. Is first we define the problemed area, then we go in and we, by right clicking, by using the paint weights tool. Now that paint weights tool is located, here's how we'll take this back to 0. Take that back to 0. And once we have keys set on our control curve, we'll just take that back to where it has no motion on it, no deformations when it's in its static T-pose, and we'll select the channels, and we'll simply, in the MG channel box, go to Attribute, Break Connections, which will remove all of the keys that were on that object. Then if we scroll through and we select that object, we see that there are no more keys in the timeline on that object. So that's basically how we go about painting weights. Now, if you select the object and you go to Skin, Edit Smooth Skin, that's where you'll find your Paint Skin Weights tool. And here, under Mirror Skin Weights, we're going to mirror that over now from positive X to negative X, mirroring across the YZ axis, the up and the back axis. And we're using influence of 1 to 1, closest point on surface, and normalize, and we're going to mirror that. So now the changes that we made to this side will also be on the other side. So we don't have quite as much stretching going on or crushing, and that might work better for us when we actually get in to posing and animating the character. We have definitely some crushing issues in the back, but it's really not bad. It's getting closer and closer to where we want it. We've fixed the shoulder problem and basically gone through our workflow for how turn the joints off. Let's select the character. Let's just pose him real quick in a pose. We'll just kind of bring that forward. Let's bring the shoulder down and forward. Oh, that's doing that. Oh, we selected a bone there. We don't want to select the bone. Select the control object. Okay. Not looking too bad. Let's turn off the curves. Under our show menu, we'll turn off our nerves curves and just basically look at what kind of deformations we're getting. It's not looking too bad. We'll really know when we start to animate the character and start to create its pose library, and we'll cover that in another lesson. But we are definitely getting closer Going to Control Z, just kind of coming back out of that. All right. Looking good. That's how we go about painting weights.